Welcome to Profile, the show that shares inspiring stories of ordinary people who are doing some extraordinary things in this world. My name is Robbie, and today I have here with me someone who has bootstrapped herself from a regular 9-to-5 job to creating her own financial independence. And she's here today to share with us how you can do the same. Please help me welcome Alison Setton.
Thank you so much, Robbie, and I'm humbled by your introduction.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've bootstrapped my way. I've had so much support from amazing people like my husband, my family. So I would love to say I bootstrapped my way, but I really feel like that would be cheating a little bit. I've had wonderful support, so thank you.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
And for sharing with our viewers how they can create that independence financially, and you also talk about being able to put yourself in a position where you can do more for others, right? All right, so let's talk about money. What is money and how does money work?
For me, and I think for a lot of people, money means freedom.
Yeah.
And that can be freedom of time, freedom to do what you want, freedom to give, to live generously. Sometimes people have a negative association with money.
Yes.
And that might be programming that comes from childhood or from our society. But for me, money is freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah.
How does it work, by the way?
How does money work?
Yes.
Well, it's not as complicated as maybe the financial industry traditionally might have us think. I grew up thinking that money was complicated.
Yes.
Or that maybe people who wanted more money were greedy. I had some really negative programming, kind of middle class thinking, unfortunately, around money.
Yes.
And my thinking evolved and changed as I grew, and I realized that we're taught how to earn money and we're taught how to spend money, not necessarily in that order.
Right.
But we're not really taught how to grow it, how to invest it, how to get it working for us, how to pass it on generationally. Those are things you have to go and learn. But again, there's a few basic principles, and I really believe that if people understood and embraced a few basic principles, they could really change not only their life, but their family's life for generations. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your background growing up. What was that like?
Well, I had a wonderful middle-class background. I grew up in North Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay.
My father was an engineer. My mom was a nurse. And very loving family, older sister. Really a wonderful childhood. We traveled.
Yeah.
We lived in different countries, mostly based in Canada.
Okay.
The programming around money is so subconscious, I really had no idea I was absorbing anything at all. But I look back and I realized, spending money was what I as a child saw.
Yes.
I saw my parents enjoy spending money. It was like a sport, let's go to the mall for fun, right?
Yes.
And I also saw my parents fight over money. And I think that's an experience many adults can remember as kids, having their parents fight over money. And I think all those little experiences can add up to how we view money, maybe a source of stress or maybe a source of something that can be lost,
Yes.
That we have to hang on to tightly.
Yes.
Or a source of pleasure. We spend and we get that dopamine and that's a source of fun. We're not necessarily taught about how money is a powerful tool and how to make it work for us.
You started off by being an engineer, a mechanical engineer, right? How did that happen?
Well, I think like many 17-year-olds, you're asked to pick what you want to be. And for me, growing up in maybe a middle-class, upper-middle-class neighborhood, it was just assumed that you would go on to university, college if you're in the U.S. And I never questioned that. I think for a while I had a dream of being a ballerina. That's, something that many girls have growing up. And then I realized one day that probably wasn't going to happen. So I switched. And I think that was my first big pivot in my life. I said, okay, I remember thinking, funny enough, I'm not going to be able to retire if I am a ballerina.
Right.
because I wasn't good enough to make, a living at it.
Yeah.
And I saw my parents talking about retirement. I knew it was something important. Didn't really conceptualize it. So I thought I better get a job. What am I going to do? Well, I don't like blood and guts. I'm not going into medicine, but I love math and physics. I'll be an engineer. I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
And I applied for mechanical engineering. That's because I liked physics. I had a great physics teacher, and teachers really influence us at that age. And in the summer, I learned, before I went to University of British Columbia, I learned about this thing called environmental engineering. And I had gone through my idealistic phase. I was, vegan or vegetarian, and I rode my bike, and I was trying to save the world, as many 14, 15, 16-year-olds wonderfully will do.
Yeah.
And there was this thing called environmental engineering. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I like the sound of it. And I wrote into the university and said, I want to be part of this new program.
Right.
And that's ultimately what I graduated from, was and registered with the Association of Professional Engineers as an environmental engineer, one of the first in British Columbia, which was really neat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was it anything you expected it to be?
Yes and no. I think, like many big milestones, for me, when I hit a big milestone, I'm almost disappointed when I get there. And I think it's because I enjoy the struggle. I enjoy the journey. And I don't necessarily recognize that until retrospect. Yeah. But when I became an engineer, I thought, oh, is this it? Is that it? Like, am I there? And I then started looking, okay, what's next? What's the next thing? And I was told, well, you're an engineer, you need to get your MBA. That's the next step. And I don't know why, but I didn't question it very much.
You just went ahead.
Yeah. And I think we're really on autopilot a lot of the time in our life. And so I went and did an MBA, and that helped me get a better job, a better position. But I think lurking inside of me was a desire to make a difference, to feel like I was making a difference.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to find a way to exercise that.
What age were you at this time?
So when I started engineering, I was early 20s. And then when I was about 33, I was pregnant. I'd met my husband, who was an entrepreneur.
Nice.
And I was pregnant. We'd been married a year or two. And I had my daughter. And that was the second time in my life where I realized I need to pivot. Because at first, I thought, oh, I'll have this child be back at work in 6 months. Not skip a beat.
Yes.
But like many parents, I realized that was not going to be the case. That I fell in love with this little person.
Yes.
And realized I want more time. I don't, money is a necessity of life, but I want more time. And I can't imagine going back to a 9-to-5 job now that I have this person in my life, this responsibility, this opportunity. And so I realized I needed to pivot again. Even though, I loved engineering, it had come to kind of a natural pause, starting a family. And I realized, what am I going to do? Another big shocker, there's not a lot of, there aren't many systems in place for young families. And for some reason, again, I don't know what, I must have been in a fog for the first half of my life, because I realized, well, what do people do? How do people have a child and work? Like, how does that work? And of course, now I realize everyone is trying to juggle having a family and a meaningful career.
Yes.
And I think for women, it can be difficult to have both a meaningful, fulfilling career and feel like you're doing a good job as a mother. So I thought, I'll become self-employed.
Okay.
And I'll have flexibility of time. And so I first started helping my husband, who was transitioning from being an entrepreneur as a property developer, as his dad retired, into being a real estate agent. So I'm really good at systems. So I thought, okay, I'll help him get started. So we worked together for about a year. And then my husband said, you're wasting your brain. You got to do something different. Like, I'm good. I'm ready to go. Yes. You got to do something different. He kind of pushed me out the nest a bit. And by that time, we'd found childcare for my daughter. So I thought, okay, I'll hang up my shingle as a consulting engineer. And I thought I had my own business. And then realized I'm trading time for money still. And I want more time. And I can't make more money in less time if I'm just trading time for money.
Right.
And of course, that concept was widely, I guess, promoted through Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. But when I saw that, it was such a revelation to me. What? I'm trading time for money as an employee. Now I'm trading time for money as a self-employed person. I need to make another shift, another pivot.
Okay.
And I started looking for a business. What kind of business? And so I started to learn about a business where you could become an agent, get mentorship, which is huge, and learn how to help people with money, to learn about money. And then you could also train other people to do the same, so you can build a team.
Right.
And that's when you move from being an agent or self-employed into a pathway where you can start to have your own brokerage, your own business, and start to scale.
When was this?
So 2012 is when I stumbled into the financial industry, and I was ready. And I think that is key. You have to be ready to make a difference, to pivot. And I really believe people will pivot, people will take a risk when they're dissatisfied with something.
They are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a number one driver. And so many times opportunity is everywhere. It's passing us by. And until we're ready to receive it, we won't. And so I just happened to be ready in 2012.
Almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, tell us about this 10 years journey.
I've always been able to learn quickly. I love to learn, almost to a fault. I wish I were more action-oriented, and I've had to learn to take action, because if you're an entrepreneur, you have to take action. But what I didn't realize is the tremendous change that has to come in personal growth and development, with getting out of your comfort zone, with facing rejection, all of the things that go along with having a business and being an entrepreneur. That learning curve, which continues, took, 5 or 6 years to really feel like I wasn't just spinning my wheels, and to come to terms with and to get ahead.
So right now in your business, you are helping people to understand how money works and also how to grow.
I really believe, and in my heart and in my soul, want to help people, ordinary people, get ahead and to get access to the tools and strategies that the wealthy have had access to for generations. So I'm with a company, I'm aligned with a company called World Financial Group that really is democratizing a lot of those tools. But in order to bring those tools to the middle market, it has to come with education, because people don't need what they don't understand they may need. Yeah. And so the focus of my day-to-day is teaching. So we put all of our tools and education out there. I give seminars live on Zoom on how money works.
Yes. And
I use a lot of the tools and strategies of our company. And that's how I allow people to check me out as well, to see if they would like to work with me. And I want to work with people who want to help themselves. Right. So over the years, I built up a client base, and that's sort of step one, right? Step one is, as an advisor, as an agent, as someone working in financial services, you build up your client base. And that's wonderful, because the nature of the products is you get recurring income.
Yes.
But for me, the next step is I don't want to just have my own two hands. I can only help so many people with my own two hands. So the next step is I want to train more people to do what I do.
And have a team.
Yeah, I want to have a team, because then we can make a bigger impact.
When you look at entrepreneurial shape and entrepreneur mind, would you say that you're born with it, or it's something that you developed or pounced on?
That's a great question. I really believe that you're born with some characteristics to be suited to being an entrepreneur. So for me, the characteristics I look for are eagerness to learn, willingness to fail, which can be learned as well, but a desire, like I call it the fire in the belly. You have a desire to do more, to accomplish more, to be more. And if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks about that burning desire.
Yes.
And I have never met a successful entrepreneur that doesn't have that. Almost to the point where they're psychotic about whatever they're pursuing. Right? You're like, oh my gosh, here they come again. They're going to talk about X, right? Yes. But I think that's an inherent characteristic. Now, that burning desire can be applied to many different fields, right? And the field you choose may be finance, it may be real estate, it may be retail, but there's that inherent characteristic. And I think you're born with that. I've always been self-motivated. And I think how you exercise that is opportunity and who you meet and whether you're open, maybe that seed of dissatisfaction as well.
Right.
So I think there are some characteristics that help you become a successful entrepreneur. And by successful, I think 90% of it is persistence and it's not giving up.
What about what to do? Okay, fine. I'm an entrepreneur. That's the way I feel, I think. What do I do with that?
Find a way to exercise. You need a platform to match your dreams with your goals. Right? You need. So I looked at all different types of businesses, and I think that's a worthy and important exercise to make sure you can match what you're doing with your integrity, your passion. You've got to feel good about what you do. You've got to be able to get behind it in your heart and your soul, because it's going to be hard work. And I think one thing you don't want to do is just be motivated by money. I mean, we're all motivated, I'm sure, by money to a certain degree, but that can't be the only thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. You've got to find a deeper why. And then have an engine, a platform or a business that can get you where you want to go. Yes. I see a lot of entrepreneurs that are just in a business that doesn't have a big enough market or a big enough opportunity or just solving a big enough problem to match where they want to go with it. So you got to match those two things.
Yes. So it's the way you feel, and also it's going to take a lot of research to say, is this for me?
Yeah, and I think research is what I would be drawn to, but I think that research can look different for different people. I think you got to try things and you got to talk to people, because you may not hit the mark the first time around. I really feel like it was luck, or maybe just opportunity meeting my being ready, that I stumbled into the financial industry. I mean, I almost looked at having a daycare. Like, thank goodness for the kids that never happened, right? It'd be a disaster. But I was like, okay, there's a need. You know, I need daycare for my own daughter. Like, no one can find it, so there's a good market for it. Yes. But it's a really difficult business, and it wasn't where my passion was, except for the fact that I passionately needed daycare, right? So you need to be open to trying different things, and you got to accept that you may try some things and it doesn't work. That doesn't mean you're not going to be a successful entrepreneur. Yeah. You just got to find the right venue or the right, the right vehicle.
First of all, you talk about your childhood days and how you were initially taught about money, but I can see you have changed that totally. Now, where did that drive come from, would you say, to make that change?
I think I've always been driven to reach my full potential, but I didn't really have the right vehicle. So being an employee, I think you're really limited by the hierarchy or the structure that you're in. And being an engineer, I really wanted to be able to make a difference. But you're limited by budget, bureaucracy, your position, your department, and that was frustrating. When I met my husband, who came from an entrepreneurial background, they were real estate developers, I started to realize how the sky is the limit, that you can do what you set your limits at. And I realized I want to make a difference. I want to help people change their lives. And when I look at my own life, which, again, no complaints, wonderful life, but I didn't have the belief that I could make a big difference. And that, I think, is thanks to being exposed to people like my husband and other entrepreneurs that said, yeah, we can change the world if you want, if that's important to you. Yeah.
Is that what you want?
Yes, because the financial industry, on the business side, it's the biggest industry in the world. Economic inequality is one of the biggest problems that has not been solved in the world. And for me, that comes down to a lack of education. The disparity between the very rich and the very poor is growing wider. And for me, that is linked to social sustainability, which is linked to environmental sustainability. So for me, economic and environmental challenges are linked. And if I want to make a difference, yeah, my first career was in environmental engineering. More and more I was faced with the brick wall. What's the business case? What's the payback? What's the money? So everything comes back to money in our world, in our business world, right? And so if we can help empower people to be able to get ahead, to realize some of their dreams, to pass wealth on, if we can at least halt the widening gap, if not shrink the widening gap between the rich and the poor, if we can make financial illiteracy as ridiculous as illiteracy itself, then we can start to get traction on solving other big problems as well. So environmental and economic sustainability are two very interlinked problems that if I can bring my skill set to the table to help make a difference in that area, that's what I want to do.
Now, inside of your household, you have two business people. How do you find work-life balance?
Yes. So work-life balance, I don't believe in balance. I've pushed that. And the reason I don't believe in balance is it's an impossible goal. We're always out of balance if we really look at it. And so for me, I embrace, okay, I'm out of balance, not working right now, or I'm out of balance working too much. So we're always going to be pivoting around that magical balance point. If we hit it for a brief second, then we're very lucky, right? So I think that's the first concept I throw out the window is I'm not going to strive for balance. I'm going to strive for the goals that I want to hit, this quarter, this year, the next 5 years. And I may have to be out of balance for a little while. And thankfully, because I am in a family with another entrepreneur, my husband understands, okay, or my daughter, mommy's focused. And I bring my family into it. I say, guys, this is something really important to me. I'm going to be extra busy for this next week or this next month. This is how you can help. This is what to expect from me. And then when we hit that goal, what can we do together that's fun? How can we reward ourselves? And same with my husband. He has deals, and when a deal is in play, we all try to give him the space to work hard, and then he takes time off. So we have different styles, my husband and I, but we've learned how to work with each other and support each other. And quite frankly, in order for me to get time off work, I have to get pretty much out of town because I love what I do. Like I find it really hard to turn off. Whereas my husband puts structural boundaries in place, like he turns his phone off. As long as he's not got a deal going on, he will take time out and just make those boundaries for himself. I find that really difficult. I really struggle with it. So I have to communicate, this is what I'm doing and this is why, and let's all get behind this.
You talk about what it was like in your household, about money, and the path that you took as a result of the guidance you have and all. Looking back though, is there anything you would have changed based on what you know today?
Some of the practical things I would have changed is I would have saved and then invested my money much earlier. I didn't fully comprehend the power of compound interest, of compound anything. Everything in life compounds. Every habit compounds. Every dollar, if invested properly, can compound. It astounds me that even going to business school, like I say, I did an MBA, I did an engineering degree, and I never understood the rule of 72 as it applies to real life. In fourth year level math and engineering, we proved the equation of the rule of 72 of how money that describes compound interest. We did the proof of that equation. And it never occurred to me to go and apply it by putting my money into an investment. I just didn't know that I could invest money. And That opportunity to learn about investing and get our money working for us has never been better. Anyone can open an investment account now. We have powerful tools at our fingertips. I think people just need some guidance and a little nudge to go and use it, to use those tools. And so I wish I had known that when I was younger and taken action to do it. I wish I had held on to the investments I had. I mean, I bought a house in my 20s, and then I sold a house in my 20s. I wish I'd just kept it. You know, it never occurred to me that I could rent it out. And I think that entrepreneurial mindset just wasn't there yet.
What's your message to people, young people, everyone, when it comes to money? You talk at length at there's a divide between the rich and the poor and all of that, but and you want that gap to shrink. But what's your message? How can we shrink it? What do they need to do?
Right. It all starts with making sure you understand your money programming, and that you understand that anything is possible. That you get rid of the shackles that may bind you if you want more. But there's also rules to the game. You need to understand how money compounds, how it grows. You need to learn to invest. You need to learn that if you're uncomfortable today because you're saving and you're sacrificing, that will lead to much greater, exponentially greater comfort in the future. Just like exercise. Get uncomfortable today to be better and more comfortable and healthy in the future. Money is a process. It's not something you do once. Like, you've got to keep learning about money and different tools and strategies that are out there by talking to people. Maybe it's a professional, but by talking to people about how are they managing their money. So be curious, ask questions, talk to people about money, start having conversations, start destigmatizing the conversation around money.
Yes.
And looking at your job, and then maybe diversifying your income stream, finding another skill, another passion, a plan B. There are so many great reasons besides money to have a plan B, but to have a plan B, because I think as we've seen during COVID and the pandemic, the security around a job is really just perceived. It's not real. The security that you can create by having your own income, your own job that you control is real. So earning more, having a way to earn more.
Well said.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
I need to duplicate myself. I need an army of people learning about money for themselves to change their own family, because everything starts with your family, and then sharing that with their friends and family and people they know. And this is how we're going to create a movement. It's not just a business. It's about creating a groundswell, a movement around money and understanding it and learning about it and being financially literate and learning how to grow and invest it.
I've learned so much from you, and I'm sure everyone watching learned something. Thank you.
I hope so. Thank you.
And of course, if you see value in Alison's message, experience, advice today, apply it to your life. You can also reach out to her, and she's willing and she's ready to answer any question that you have, and also work with you to create that financial independence and also to understand money a lot more. Thank you so much for watching. You have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.